going to be talking with our celebrity historian friend, Raffi Andonian, about Monte Ne, what you might not know about that historic Northwest Arkansas location. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. We've got Raffi Andonian joining me right now. We're talking about this little gem of a place in Northwest Arkansas called Monte Ne. And I know a lot of Northwest Arkansans are familiar with it, but let's broaden that scope and let's bring the notoriety to a whole new audience. Raffi, what can you tell us about Monte Ne?
Monte Ne means mountain air. So as you might imagine, with a name like that, which was changed, originally it was Silver Springs, that area, but Monte Ne was changed to Mountain Air because of Coin Harvey coming and establishing a resort there. So as you might imagine, with a name like Mountain Air, it's going to be a resort town, right? Because it's just kind of appealing to that kind of tourism. Now, its heyday was in the teens and the 20s, starts to decline in the early 1930s, and it was established by a guy named William Coin Harvey, Coin being his nickname, who was originally from West Virginia in the mountains, moved across the Midwest and into the West, got into silver mining, and developed resorts and tried to develop various things in different places. Ends up here in Northwest Arkansas specifically because of the fact that there was not a lot of rich people, as he put it, because there was less economic stratification here in the mountains. So he kind of wanted to be with the common man because of his background in politics. Now, his background in politics, he developed that name Coin because he was someone that advocated for what was known as the free silver movement in the 1890s. And in summary, kind of what the free silver movement is trying to do at the time is introduce silver into the money supply, which for a variety of reasons means that it expands the money supply, which then leads to inflation, which was favorable for miners, which remember he was a silver miner himself, and farmers, because they didn't hold a lot of cash and they would be in a lot of debt. And as a result, if you have a lot of debt, inflation actually favors you because you're able to pay back your debt with lower value, if that makes sense. And so this was a big movement in the 1890s, especially out west. So here is this guy that had a lot of politics, fighting for the common man, as he saw it, comes here to Northwest Arkansas specifically because of the mountains, because of the social strata that I just described, or lack of local social strata, and establishes the resort to become a major destination.
You know, something interesting happens because we have this sort of marker, this monumental place, Monte Ne, resort. People are coming here for ages, right, for decades. And then it goes through a period and it kind of becomes this place that is full of lore and local folklore into where it becomes a destination, maybe for teenagers and things later on, and to what it is now. People still go out there. So maybe talk to us about that transition and what it has become today.
Yeah, so after Monte Ne's decline, you have a period where it's just kind of quiet there. And eventually, of course, there's damming, which means that the water with the Army Corps of Engineers increases levels and then, submerges most of the Monte Ne resort. And so it becomes a totally different thing. If you want to call it a form of a ghost town, even though it's submerged. And I think those places have a kind of special caption, they capture our imagination, especially in lore. And so in the late 1980s, you have a story of a group of teenagers that go there to hang out, as teenagers often do, in out-of-the-way places that have kind of a spookiness and a coolness to it. And there's a story of a couple in particular who end up going off, from the group, and eventually they get kind of chased down by this boogeyman, if you will, and Darla disappears. And her name is Dear Darla. She's known as Dear Darla. There's a Dear Darla story. And as a result, we have this lore that has played out since then, throughout the 90s and into the 2000s, which is a story that if you go in that area today, if you're driving, you may see a girl who's calling for help, who asks to come into your car. And when you drive the car to, let's say you put her, you have her come in your car, and you drive in a car, eventually what happens is when they get to the mother's house, because the girl is asking to get back home to her mom, you look in your back seat and there's nothing but a sweater.
And another thing that's associated, so that's kind of like folklore, ghost story, if you will, always gives me chill bumps when I hear it. But there's also this idea of there being buried treasure out there, right? Even though Coin Harvey died poor, people still think there might be treasure buried amongst the remnants and the remains of Monte Ne.
Yeah, you know, it's funny. You know, part of me wonders if that's part of what drew some teenagers to the area too. You know, I don't know that for a fact.
Right.
But you know, when you think about it, those kinds of places that hold that kind of lore, especially when you're younger, it really draws a lot of people. But yes, a lot of these places that have this sense of, you know, a glorious past, this sense of maybe a nostalgia also, do end up, you know, after they decline with stories of buried treasure or a buried pot of gold or something like that. And I think that kind of, you know, it's one of those story kind of paradigms that really draws us. I'll give you a quick kind of side example. You know, I saw the opera Cold Mountain, which was at some point a movie, before that an Academy Award-winning movie, and of course started out as a book that was out in dozens of languages, many millions sold. You might remember Nicole Kidman, Jude Law, Renee Zellweger. It was all, you know, it was a big Oscar film at the time. Well, eventually it became an opera, and I saw the opera as well. And in that process, I met the author of Cold Mountain. And you know what he said, even though it was set in the Civil War? He said that really I just wrote the story of the Odyssey. I'm a storyteller, and I took the story of the Odyssey and put it into the mountains of North Carolina during the Civil War. So it's not a Civil War history, it's the Odyssey. And you know what that tells me? It's the same story paradigm that for thousands of years has appealed to us and is just being recreated and reiterated and imprinted into different arenas. And I would say that we have maybe a couple dozen of such stories, and one of those is the buried treasure story. So I would say that that's kind of one of those stories that I think pops up over and over.
Yeah.
You know, it's a paradigm that pops up over and over in different places. And in this particular case, when it's kind of this lost, glorious place, that's the paradigm we often pluck and put into there.
Raffi, this is fascinating. You know, I've got a limited series out there right now called Whispers in the Holler. Raffi joins me to have a particular, more in-depth conversation about Monte Ne. You can stream Whispers in the Holler on KNWA and Fox 24's app, which is 479 First. It's available on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV. If you want to learn more, go check that out. Raffi, thanks for filling us in and kind of piquing our interest a little bit about Monte Ne.
Yeah, thank you. You got to check it out.
Got to check it out. That's right. It's right here in our backyard. Stick around. We've got more fun happening later. And we can't get out of here without thanking all of our guests, including the one and only celebrity historian, Raffi Andonian.